Let's get this meeting going. Let's see, today is Thursday, September 18th. It's 5:30 p.m. local time. This is the meeting of the City of Harbor Springs, Michigan Planning Commission. And yeah, you want to start us with a roll call?
Certainly. Bill Mulder.
Here.
Barry Lutzgard.
Here.
Bob Buckner. Here. Jeannie Benjamin. Here. Vanessa Warren.
Here.
Kenny Stewart. Here. Tony Johnson.
Here.
Chip Everest. Here. Mark Bidet is absent, but I believe he's going to be showing up later. And I'd like to introduce our new student council or student representative to the Planning Commission, Avery Hoffman.
So I'll tell you a little bit about this program. Some of the boards and commissions at the city have a student representative, and they're this high-performing, motivated students who decided to sign up for something really aggressive. And how about picking the planning commission? I mean, they had the tree board. And no offense, tree board. I'm sorry. No, it's a sore subject. Anyway, Avery, welcome. We are so glad to have you.
Thank you.
And so you're joining on an auspicious evening, right?
Yes.
And this is the culmination of more than a year's worth of work, and we're glad to have you. So Avery, as a student, gets to weigh in and provide her opinion, but she doesn't get to vote. And she's treated as a full council member other than that, or a commission member other than that. And then Avery, things the planning commission talks about sometimes can get emotional, and the very important people, like extremely important people. You'll hear that tonight. If you ever feel uncomfortable, you're free to leave. You don't have to ask anybody's permission. But if for any reason it doesn't feel quite right, then you can feel free to leave. And I'm sure that our residents are not going to make you uncomfortable. We're going to have a great and productive meeting.
Bill, does that go with me too?
Yeah. Oh, you've got to stay. All right, let's go to the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. All right, we have minutes from our August 21st meeting. Does anybody have any corrections?
I move to approve the August minutes.
We have a motion to approve, no corrections.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, minutes are approved. And now we go into public comment. And this is the part where a resident or any attendee can make a comment about a topic that's not on tonight's agenda. And the only thing on tonight's agenda is the draft zoning code. So if you, I'm sorry, and Wallstrom request, right. So if you have something other to say, suggestions, ideas, etc., not related to those two things, now is your time. And you can have 3 minutes and you can come up to the podium. And you can state your name and address. First off.
Thanks. My name is Mike Kilborn. I live 703 Elwood. For 30 years. Actually, prior to that, because I used to come up and visit. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to me. I also appreciate that you had the 5 meetings recently, 4 of which I attended. Now I'm here representing the Glen Association, Glen Beach, people in many homeowners in the Glen Beach area, also West Thursday. I have a background in real estate. I'm a financial planner, but I'm also a developer. They surprise some people. In fact, I used to be, when I was more into real estate, I was president of the Southwest Florida Board of Realtors and have several designations, including the CCIM, if any of you know what that is. So with that as a background, I'm very familiar with real estate. And I'm not developing here in Harbor Springs, but I am developing somewhat in Florida and used to develop in Kalamazoo. So again, going back to what I opened, and that is that representing these people, we're concerned with several things, but 3 major things. One is the overlay of taking overlay above what you have now for planned unit developments, PDs.
Point of order, please.
Can you speak to them?
That's not the agenda, so we'll be
That's-
discussing
Okay,
that.
Steve, what's on the agenda?
Yeah, this is the section for people who would like to speak about things that are not on the agenda. And, yeah, and PD is smack in the middle of, yeah, it is red hot. Look for, all right, look forward to hearing from you.
So you want to cut the, told to introduce this at the beginning of the meeting, so. I said to,
Oh, yeah,
do you want that at the beginning of the meeting?
No, if you,
Yeah.
could you hold it, but
I'm glad to.
I'd love to hear. on
Doing what I was told.
I know where you're going. Thank you.
You and more, Chair.
All right, anything to add that's not on the agenda? All right, let's take a quick pause while we get some more chairs out. On Zoom, I always want to know how many people are in the room. What's your estimate?
okay, a few minutes ago, I counted 56.
So Jeff counted 56 a few minutes ago. It's going up. It's gotta be 70. How many people are on Zoom?
23.
Over here. And there's one up front.
And we can just make sure.
There's one.
Two over here, just make sure when we're moving out, we have seats that we don't lost.
Once we get.
Yeah, we need to keep an opening door.
Three empty seats over here.
There's three over there?
Yes.
There's three seats up front.
One, yes, it's up there.
Okay, looking good.
All
All right, first thing on the agenda tonight is a site plan review for Wallstrom Marine. And Jeff or John, you want to set this up for us?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, we have a site plan that was submitted by Wallstrom's Marine to add 7 parking spaces to their marina. It's a result of, there's actually 2 plans, part of the site plan submittal. The first plan shows the location of the 7 parking spaces, which are south of their building on Bay Street. It was formerly used for some dock storage. The second set of plans that were prepared by Edgewater Resources shows the location of 14 new boat slips. The zoning code requires a 1 parking space per 2 slips. So they're required to provide 7 parking spaces, which they have. It's a fairly simple site plan, meets all the site plan criteria that's outlined in section 50.2001. And the only condition that I have as part of the site plan review is that they did not submit a drainage plan. And I would suggest as a condition of the site plan that they submit the drainage plan to the city for review prior to the issuance of the zoning permit. Otherwise, this was a pretty clean site plan. My understanding is that the site plan was also reviewed by the Harbor Commission and they approved it as well. So with that, if you have any questions.
Do we have anybody from Wallstrom here tonight?
David
Is there anything you'd like to add that we should know?
I'd like to add, if I can, real briefly. So Dave did just send in a drainage plan that we have, so we'll be able to give that a review. Also, we're just here to look at the on-land side of things, but when the Harbor Commission reviewed it and approved it, they approved the 14 new boat slips. So we don't have to worry about that as part of our review tonight. We're looking at the addition and the change of the uses on land with the addition of 7 new parking spots. And David, if you'd like to add anything else.
I think you guys have covered it pretty straightforward. I think we're above and beyond even with the additional, oh, I'm sorry.
Could you tell us your name too?
Yeah, I'm sorry. David Lynch with Wallstrom Marine. I think with the addition of the 7 slips, even without that, we were over the required amount. We didn't have any slips that we hopefully were well ahead of that at this point. Yes, straightforward. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a curiosity question. all the new dockage, is that floating dockage? And is there any significant structure you're adding in order to do that?
It's all floating dockage. So we will be adding some pilings for those docks, but that's it.
Thank you.
I don't know if I'm allowed to ask you a question. Is that a break wall shown on the east side of the entrance there?
Yes, well, that was the original.
Floating break wall?
Yeah, I believe it was with the original plans when they submitted that. I'm not sure if that was approved or not, but that was.
That's not part of this.
That's not part of this. No, I think Jeff's got the drawings from Edgewater showing. Yeah, the docks are gonna be on the west side of the dock.
All right.
This, I got confused by the drawing. The 7 spaces are where? The new 7 parking spaces?
Pulling it up right now. So it's this area right here, if you can see my mouse on the screen.
And this area used to be
Both storage.
both stored. So you're not changing the pavement, changing the grades, you're just restriping it.
There are no stripes there now, so we'll be putting stripes.
So you're just striping it, okay.
Presumably that'll then be used for storage in the wintertime again.
Most likely, if needed.
I move to accept the plan, including the new submission of the drainage.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion from the planning commission? All right, let me do a roll call.
So we have a motion to approve the site plan. Jeff Everest.
Yes.
Tony Johnson.
Yes.
Kenny Stewart.
Yes.
Vanessa Warren.
Yes.
Jeannie Benjamin.
Yes.
Tom Buckner.
Yes.
Barry Lefferts.
Yes.
Joe Mold.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're gonna get into the next item, which is a public hearing on the draft zoning code. And this is a formal and defined kind of a process. And we've got City Attorney Jim Raymer with us today to make sure we do it just right. And I'll tell you the rules for public comment. They're stricter than we usually run with. And but when we're ready. But I think the first thing that we should do is to review the themes. Well, let me tell you how we got here. And so this started when the formerly new zoning code was repealed to the voters in November of last year. And planning commission met shortly after that and took a look at the current zoning code, which went back into effect shortly after that. And had meetings with the public, quite a lot of open houses and town hall sessions, really scrubbed the current zoning code and found a number of things that we felt were deficient. And there were enough problems that it warranted going back at it to try to improve what we've got. And so that's why we're here. And we've been working all winter, spring and summer long. We've gotten to the point where we have a draft zoning code that was published after the last meeting, August 21st. The community has inspected it. And now the next step in that is this public hearing. And that's why we're all here tonight. And over the last 2 weeks, we had 5 public open houses that were really well attended. And it was a wide open format, spirited discussion, instant back and forth. And we heard a lot of things, a lot of comments and some concerns from the community. And Jeff's put together a short memo in the package. And Jeff, do you want to tell us what your takeaways were?
Absolutely. And I tried to narrow this down to actionable items, common concerns that many people in the community shared, that were pretty concise, that would be easily something that we could explain with potential ways that we could address them in the zoning code. I've put in some recommendations. It's just something to help start a discussion, to help guide you. But there was again a lot of feedback from the community. There were certainly some things that people liked. I think the new format was something that I think people did appreciate. But there were some concerns and some of them were very specific and they had some ideas on what they didn't like about it. The first one was co-living use. There was a lot of concern about bringing that into the community, expanding where that could be done. And so I think we really heard from the community that they would like us to revisit that topic and revisit what zoning districts they could be used in. And really take a good look at that. And I think further feedback from them on this topic would be something suitable to do. Accessory dwelling units was another good topic that came up repeatedly. I think the repeated comments and concerns from the community is that they liked to be notified of a project that was going on nearby, so that they would just have that notification, they could come in and they could look at what was happening. Even though we weren't receiving a lot of concerns and complaints at public comment hearings for the review of them, people really appreciated getting that notice about that meeting. And so kind of the idea there was that that we should continue to keep that as a special land use so that they would continue to receive those notifications. And one thing that we did talk about at that was that in the previous zoning code, some of them were special land uses and some of them were permitted uses. One thing that I found interesting was a lot of the people that were here at the meeting talking about that they would like to receive those notices and have them be special land use were people that were in the district where it was a permitted by right use. So I think that if we were to go in that direction, there might not be too much opposition there. But again, I think that that would be a good thing to discuss tonight. And the last one that was the big one was cluster zoning and planning the developments. I think there was a lot of concern with how that could be done. We tried to do some education at the meetings to make sure that everybody understood exactly what it meant. And I feel that what I learned from that was that the specific portions of cluster zoning and planned unit developments that were kind of the key points were concerns that a much higher density than what would otherwise be permitted in that district might be something that might be done through that process with little checks and balances. Another one was bringing in potential uses that otherwise might not be permitted in those districts. So I put some, points for discussion here that we could go back and touch on. I think another one was that there wasn't much of a tool in there for determining through that process if they were looking for higher density on how that could be measured, what they would have to meet in order to be able to do something. So again, just points I think that would be good for us to discuss and review to potential maybe make some updates to the code.
I have a question. Back on co-living, that's permitted by right today in what R1B is it?
R1C.
Am I correct?
It's not by right. It's permitted by special land use, right? We have some co-living in town already. I don't believe that any of them are really located in R1C districts now. They're currently in, I think, R2 and R1A. They're all pre-existing non-conformities. And I know that when we reviewed this and discussed it, we talked about having that be a special land use in most of our single family residential districts, but the community seemed to be pretty on point with concerns about that, so.
Planning commission members, many of you attended the open house. Do you want to add anything, or did you hear anything different? Or anything that you'd like to tell us?
My perspective is that I think what Jeff has summarized here in this summary of the open house feedback is pretty consistent with what I certainly observed. So I think it accurately reflects the experience that I had.
There certainly may have been some other concerns that I didn't include, but those were the ones that seem to be that we commonly were going back to for discussion.
And planning commission members, are you willing to take another look at those 4 items?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we have willingness to do that. Let me add something else on planned unit development. This is the bigger, more complicated development option. And this has, I'd say, most of the concern for folks. And we heard some concerns like, this could allow someone to build a hotel on Glen Drive or a 5-story condo tower on the waterfront. And, there were some pretty horrifying things that were mentioned. And so we recognize that. And that's why I think we should revisit it. And then two more things happened, two more unexpected things. First is that we've gotten a proposal from a group of residents for some amended or different wording or additional wording for our planned unit development language. And there are some things in there, probably Carter will tell us about it in a minute, but what I picked up are some ways to limit the maximum density that could be achieved, some ways to limit or to change the districts where it might be applied, and a couple other things as well. And so that's one thing, Carter, I'll go to you in just a second. But the other unexpected thing that's happened is that there was so much talk about the property formerly known as Bluff Gardens, which we're not calling that anymore because it was harming their business. And so we've been calling it in the last few sessions Parcel X, and it sounds interesting. And Rob Company, the owner of Parcel X, came forward at the last open house and said that he would like to share his concept with the community and open up the books and open up, a discussion about what he's thinking about in that property. And that is it's really interesting breakthrough, and it could challenge us quite a bit. If we were to be writing the rules for planned development while the property owner has a concept on, that he's showing around, we have to figure out how to treat that exactly right. We can't, somebody's gonna say, oh, you're writing rules to, forbid this guy from building something. Or no, you're writing rules to help this guy make a proposal to build something. So all of a sudden, but on the upside, Rob is offering to show his concept as a way to illustrate how a planned development approach might be better than just the vanilla zoning. So that could be really helpful. But when we talk about the rules, we're gonna have to say, no, we're not looking at his plan, we're setting the rules for everybody. So anyway, my thought is, this is gonna get way more complicated than expected. And I would suggest that we postpone plan development. In fact, tonight we could take it out of the draft zoning code completely. And then, we'll figure out what to do with what's left tonight. But then over, I bet it's gonna take 2 or 3 meetings where we're gonna have, maybe we'll have a learning segment on plan development, but then, Rob can show us his concept. We can look at what he could do under standard zoning versus plan development. But, and Jim Ringer will have to help us do this, exactly by the book so that there's no, nobody feels there's any funny business. So anyway, planning commission, how would you feel about taking plan development out of the code?
It would make sense.
I have one question about that. It's my understanding, well, I certainly know planned unit developments in some fashion are in our current zoning code. So it's not something new. They're also in most zoning codes in our area. Is there any exposure to us if we don't have planned development in our code?
And are we taking away rights that are currently had? And that seems to be an issue with folks here, taking away rights. Are we taking away rights and are we exposing ourselves to an issue?
I think my view on it would be that you're entirely within your rights to make a change to the zoning code, and if you wish to eliminate planned developments for the time being, you have complete authority to make that recommendation to the council.
And I think that public needs to know that by removing that, we're not really removing the person's opportunity to build 30 houses on that lot. It's just how they're built is what we're eliminating.
Yeah, and it's more of a postponement than the temporary elimination, it's a postponement. Let's come back, maybe take a month breather, come back and really hit this thing thoroughly. And that's my thought.
Just a comment, I agree with the postponement. I think we can fine tune the language better and look at the degree to which it has metrics versus the criteria that are, could be called subjective, but they are stiff. Even that, there aren't a lot of numbers in those criteria at this point. Just for me personally, I'm uncomfortable finalizing that area of the code with knowledge of what any developer has in mind. I may choose to excuse myself from that because I just think mixing those two at the same time is a difficult place to be.
All right, so planning commission, let me take your pulse. Do we have concurrence tonight? Take planned development out of the code that we're considering tonight. I'm seeing, why don't we just say, go around and please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Come back to me.
Yes, with the fact that the public does know that 30 lots can be built on that 10 acres at any time, even if we're eliminating this right now or postponing it, so just so they're aware.
No,
Say no.
And I say no, if we feel a change needs to be made, then it should be reverting to the language that's currently in existence.
yes.
Okay. Jim, any thoughts on that?
So the thought would be not to, just to preserve that, yes, well, that's fine. I mean, we're already, the proposal is to also preserve the existing signage provisions of the existing code. So that would certainly be workable, as Tony has suggested.
Anybody see any downside to that?
Couldn't hear it, yeah.
I asked the question, does anybody see any downside to that?
We didn't hear it.
Yes.
Okay, well, I simply said, no, there would be no problem with, preserving the existing provisions of the zoning code pertaining to planned developments and cluster zoning. Because, we're just not, you just wouldn't be recommending a restatement or amendment to those provisions.
Yeah, so would that would not preclude us though from re-examining plan development in a month or so after we've had time to reflect on this further and consider some of the commentary that was offered at the town halls.
I do not see that anyway. That would prohibit you or limit your ability to review it.
Okay, thank you.
So if we're to vote on the revised zoning code, and now we're talking about taking out language and inserting language from the old code, from the existing code, can we do that without seeing kind of how all that looks all through? Can we vote on that, or how does that work?
That's your call. I would defer to the collective wisdom of the commission.
I mean, I think that might be problematic. Not really voting on something that we really don't have in hard form. I don't know. A lot of unknown.
The idea here is that you could adopt the rest of the zoning code and just say we're not going to, we could basically amend the code, take out planned unit development and cluster zoning from the code and say we're adopting it without those in it right now. We'll keep the old stuff as it was. Or just adopt the new code without that and just adopt it with those removed. And then you could come back at another public hearing with revised language for planned unit developments and cluster
I mean,
housing.
I get it if we take it out completely, but if we're going to replace it with the existing language in the existing code, how that meshes with this revised code is what I'm concerned about.
I don't know that there's any meshing.
Well, the meshing is, we have old language with new language, and we're voting on that combined. And there's a lot of,
Okay.
land development, it's in Article 10. And I'm not sure where it is in the existing code and how I'm just, I can't picture how we would
Okay.
vote on that.
All right,
I mean, taking it out completely, I understand that,
okay.
but, and just, is that?
That'd be fine too.
You're concerned it would create a conflict.
No, I'm not concerned, not a conflict, but I just think it'd be, a source of confusion over which language, how it works. I mean, I just don't see where the existing code language would look like in the new code.
I understand your view.
Right, so I mean, that if we're okay with that, that's one thing, but, so I like take, my view is to take it out entirely to get it figured out.
I just have to ask for clarification. So are you concerned about the fact that we were putting it into a new format, or are you concerned about the actual metrics that's in the language of the current code causing a conflict?
No, the first, I mean, that was, I'm putting into the new language and, I just, before I vote on revised code, I would like to see the wording of the revised code. You know, now we're talking about changing it.
Okay, after all that, planning commission, let's take a temperature again. And would you prefer that we just, for tonight, so we could move forward tonight if we wanted to, just take out the language for planning development and cluster?
Yes. Take it out.
Chip?
Yes.
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 Okay. Tony now, what do you think?
I'll be voting no on that.
I'm good with it. Again, just warning that this could open up issues within our city, which I don't want, somebody to come in and build 30 houses the way they want instead of bringing it to us. So I worry about that, but
Okay.
I'm good with that, just taking it out and us revisiting.
And Vanessa, where do you come down on?
I don't mind revisiting it, but I don't like taking out existing rights, just taking it out and putting it where,
Yeah.
so, no.
No, okay, so it sounds like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm a yes, by the way, 5. 6 yeses and 2 would prefer not to. So I guess we move forward with taking it out of the revised, taking both those items out of the revised code. John?
Okay, so for record keeping, we're gonna remove Article 10.1. And we're gonna keep Article 10.3, which is condominium development. And 10.4, which is mobile home development. So cluster housing, which is 10.5 comes out, 10.1, which is plan unit development comes out.
Yeah, that's right.
With, Mr. Chairman, with the intent to revisit them in a timely way.
Yes, we will revisit them in a timely way. Okay, so, Carter, do you still, would you care? What's that?
I don't know what you want me to do with this.
I don't know either.
It was the draft that we had all worked
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, I don't think we need to
Give
go over
it to
that,
you.
but you want to just give us the high level view of the fact that you're making a suggestion.
If we're gonna open this up for public comment,
Oh.
I think it would be appropriate that we have a motion to open. the public
Oh,
hearing.
okay, now we're not quite ready for that yet. Okay, stand by, Carter. Thank you. All right. Okay, the other two items that we've got then, are co-living and ADU approvals. And so it sounds like we're gonna maybe hear some public comment and then we can revisit, how we want to handle those two items. And those are the two hot ones. All right. I know it's here. So I think we're about ready to move into public comment. So let me tell you about public comment. Or I'm sorry, a public hearing. It is a structured and defined process. There are state statutes that govern it. And there are, we have some bylaws that reference it as well. And here's how it goes. Each person may comment once for up to 3 minutes. And just, I took from having seen this a few times, shorter comments are actually more effective. It helps us actually, follow and focus and that kind of thing. So you can factor that into your thinking. And then here, commission response to remarks shall be limited to clarification of presented facts. So that means that we can't get into a discussion. Like if somebody comes up and says, I'd like to know why you guys are thinking about such and such, and what are the downsides here and why are you doing this? We'll be sitting up here stoically, kind of waiting because that's the way it goes. So we can't get into a discussion. We can't answer questions. This is your time to tell us what you think about what we've got on the table. Speakers have to state their full name and their full address. Clearly, Jeff has to take down each one of those for the record. And my plan is to alternate between people in the room and people on Zoom, but maybe do it like on a 3-to-1 basis. And you can help me remember if you wouldn't mind on that. Because sometimes the Zoom people get left behind. And then we want to get comments from city residents, city property owners, and city business owners before hearing from non-residents or non-property owners. And I want to restate what you just heard is that the planning commission has decided to remove planned development and cluster zoning from what we're considering tonight. So if you had comments on those, one or both of those items, you could make them, but we're going to have, I'm guessing this is into 3 more meetings with another public hearing. So there's going to be a lot of time to really detail those 2 topics. The other thing is that we're going to be sitting up here, we're supposed to make decisions on what's in the best interest of the entire community. And so we'll be listening to your remarks and ideas in that context. And if you could help us, about why a suggestion would be in the best interest of the community, that would help us bring it all together. And we would open the public hearing with a motion. Jim, are we doing everything right?
Yes. However you choose to proceed.
I'll make a motion to open public hearings.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. And all in favor, please, oh wait, do we need a roll call?
Yeah, let's do a roll call. We'll start with Vanessa Warren,
Yes.
Kenny Stewart,
Yes.
Tony Johnson,
Yes.
Chip Everest, Bill Mulvey,
Yes.
Barry Leskar.
Yes.
Bob Buckner,
Yes.
Edie Benjamin,
Yes.
motion carries.
So now the public hearing is open, and we're looking for city residents, city property owners, and city business owners to comment first. We're going to try to do 3 people in the room, go to Zoom for 1, help me remember that. Kenny is going to keep time. This is a strict 3 minutes, and he's going to tell you when it's over. So Mike Kilborn, who gave us a head start.
Thank you, Mike Kilborn, 703 Delwick, Harbor Springs. Planned developments. You have areas now in the city where you can have a planned development. If you want to improve the wording, I think it's a wonderful thing. But to go to the point where you expand having the opportunity here for a planned unit development anywhere in this, virtually anywhere in the city, is what disturbs me and all the people I represent. Why would you do that? You're just not needed to. I recognize that you would probably be very tough on any planned development going into a residential area, and maybe you wouldn't approve it. But why even expand it to residential areas, particularly when driving that general area? So when you revisit planned developments, consider taking that overlay idea that came up in August. We hadn't even heard that one before. You just set it aside, live with what the planned development areas that you got now, and improve the wording. That's one of the things. That's enough, I think, on that subject.
You got it.
ADUs. Seems to me, since the last meeting that I was in, the last thing that was said is, well, we get 1.5 requests for an ADU per year. And I thought, well, what's a by right? Just take the words by right out. You've only got 1.5 considerations, and leave it. That would make so many people happy. I can speak to others. I have no dog in this game. I don't have an issue with planning developments, but I can see where people were coming from, is to buy right business. They just want to see somebody go in and apply, and maybe they can notice that it's happening, or maybe they don't notice it's happening. But if they have a chance to notice it's happening, they can make some comments and deal with their neighbor in the situation. Lastly, you were, yeah, I don't think I didn't hear it come up, but it had to do with the number of people in a single household, unrelated people. Had something to do with the plan, up to 6 people, especially if you had 6 bedrooms, or you had to have 6 bedrooms. I would suggest you might consider lowering that number to something smaller. I'll let you play with that, but that seems a little excessive. 6 unrelated members, a lot of parking issues and other issues related. By the way, one last thing. You've done a great job with this. Honestly, I can't know how many hours you must have poured into that plan. Because every time I look at it, I go, my God, how long? 3 hours have you buried this? So in general, good job. Thank you.
Yeah, Carter, tell us something. I don't know if you want to split this. But I think I can put it in a slightly different context, but working. Can people hear that? So I'm part of Williams 355 East Bay Street. This is related to PDs, but I don't think it's just about that. So there are a lot of debate about PDs. I think the general concern is that it acts as the way drafted didn't have objective measures. So we had Leanie Wells draft some language here that solved 2 problems. One, it reinserted objective measures, and it also corrected an issue in terms of making sure it was a zoning issue so that people could potentially do it on the ZBA. I think in terms of the existing language, just making what we did is we saw this, there were a lot of questions about what Rob was doing. We sat down, we got together and sat down and had a conversation around the project. And for everybody in the community who's worried about this, I do encourage you to reach out to Rob. He'll sit down with you and show you the plans. And that some of the friction that's going on from transparency sort of goes away pretty quickly. And so very quickly, we drafted this stuff up. We generally agree on it both. You can use it in the next step back to the existing language. I think in terms of the general feedback that we have heard, that people are sort of generally okay with 2005, which was PDs everywhere, 10 acres or more, half acre inside the city. I think generally, I haven't heard anybody really complain about that. This language goes a little bit further to sort of tweak it a little bit, but the more important issue is sitting down with people who are trying to do these projects, exposing it, I think would cut down a lot of strain that everybody's feeling in the community. We have heard that there's talks about doing something on Pete's Run and up on Vesters Road. People are thinking about doing these kinds of projects to come forward and talk about them with the public more. And I think you'll probably find a lot of acceptance. That's what we saw. I'm talking to Rob. Thank you.
I do have a clarification administratively. The markup here, is this based on the current draft? Yeah, marked up and redlined.
So let me, 2 comments, both the CHIPS comment, I think it's always good to see a red line, and I assume you were meaning incorporating the 05 code. This draft was written off of the most recent draft.
Thank you.
Adding back in objective measures and adding back in the proper legal language to allow resolution through the ZBA.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, you mentioned we got together to do this. Carter, who's we?
I did it, and We Love Harbor Springs paid Laney who's a planner in the state, that's a contractor to do the work, but Rob and I sat down and drafted this.
Thank you.
And Rob's team was involved. So group effort.
Maggie Lacy, 315 Third Street. I just have a question with what you all were discussing, the legality wise, which I just want to clarification because I just don't want to move forward. If PUD is totally out of it, at least if you bookmark it with the current PUD. So legally, can you keep the old PUD code, approve this tonight, and then add the new code revisions that you plan to do? Or you just take everything off the table tonight and don't do anything, and that saves you as well. So I just want that clarification. Does that make sense?
No.
So you guys just said you were going to be taking out the PUD out of the discussion tonight. Don't you have to bookmark it and save the old code and the current zoning? If you do accept the new zoning? Because if you don't, then there's no PUD.
That's what we agreed to, right?
So if there's no PUD, so if you approve this tonight, there's no PUD. And there's
Then if city council approves it.
with no PUD.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, city council could change.
And so that's, so, or can you put a timeline when you're going to revisit what Carter and everybody else has done with regard to the PUD, or you take this whole thing off the table, everything, and don't address any of these things and come back to another meeting after you review the revisions submitted to you by Carter. I mean, it's just a little bit nervous for me that you're totally taking and changing and making a drastic move. Does that make sense?
We can't get into a discussion.
Okay, but I'd like for you guys to think about that. From what I'm hearing at this time, if you do move forward from what you guys discussed, that you're ready to be voting on, all PUDs would be off the table. Where currently, right now, PUDs are open. And so either you take everything off the table, or you put a timeline when you revisit the PUDs to put it back in. I think you have to make a hard line of what you are planning to do in this subject.
We'll take that under advisement. All right, who's next? Wait, was that 3 speakers?
Yes.
Okay, let's go to Zoom.
Robert Hall has his hand up.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can, but please speak up.
Good, thank you. This is Robert Hall, 409 Glen Drive. I'd just like to speak shortly here about smart growth. Smart growth. I had the honor of attending one of the last of the open houses on zoning a few weeks ago, and that night I heard something that set off alarm bells, and I asked that everyone here tonight consider this. Jeff Grimm was forthright and truly civic-minded enough to explain that citizens need to be ready to use less water to water their lawns. Now that's curious, because if this is true, there's usually only one way to accomplish that, and that's to raise water rates eventually. So put that in the context of trying to squeeze more people into the city, and you see where this is going. It implies that our current water sewage is nearing capacity. This reason alone should give the Planning Commission and City Council pause to reconsider new planned unit developments and make PDs a long-term issue until our infrastructure can get ahead of the curve, unless it doesn't impact all the rest of us. This town is amazingly beautiful in the summer. People take great pride in their lawns and landscaping. The PC and the City Council need to seriously look into this, and the public needs to stay tuned to it. I wish Rob Cummings well with his plans for the Bluff Gardens. He's a great guy, but we need to be sure of the impact on the rest of us in order to have smart growth. Finally, the 900-pound gorilla in the room. The city is just beginning to heal from the last election, which spoke clearly about Ordinance 439 being way too radical for the majority. These voters weren't under a spell cast upon them, which is an affront to their intelligence. They were truly concerned about a vision of the future that they did not honestly agree with. Those voters are still out there, and they are getting concerned yet again by what sounds like a drive to an ordinance with way too much in common with 439. I beg the commission and thus the city council to please take things step by step and not make this next election about zoning again, with profound implications for incumbents and all other candidates as well. Bill, members of the Planning Commission, please take into consideration there are profound political implications in what you're doing here tonight. And it was all going so well. So please keep it up and listen to folks. And I think everything will turn out okay. Many thanks to all of you on the PC for your time, every one of you, your devotion to the city, and your service to us all. Thanks.
Thank you, Robert. In the room, Chris.
Thanks. Chris Heiner, 618 East Lake. I do want to say thank you for all of the hard work over the last almost year. I've attended most of these meetings, and I've appreciated how you guys have had the patience to listen to the community. And I feel like you've really found a good middle ground here with all that community input. I'm personally excited about the possibility to build an ADU. I have mentioned this before at meetings. My parents are both 80. They're starting to have health issues, and my goal is to build them a carriage house ADU in my backyard, which is 300 foot deep, plenty of room for it. And being able to build that by right here in the next couple of years will be a huge help to my family. So I just want to say that, you know, I agree with what I've seen so far of the way it's written, that no short-term rentals of a carriage house. I agree with that. I think that'll help
you know, with people's concerns about trying to make them into hotels or Airbnbs or whatever. I don't think most of us want to see that, so I just wanted to say thank you for the way things are written now. I think is a great compromise and excited about the possibility to build. So hoping that we're able to move forward with the plan as you proposed it. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Lisa Nichols, 638 West Bluff Drive. I agree with Chris. I would like to see the same accessory dwelling unit uses and rights for all zones. If we're gonna go by right in R1A and R1E, then it should be by right in R1B, R2, and ROS. If we're gonna go special use, then it should be special use for all zones. And we need the same ADU regulations for all zones. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Lisa.
Hi, I'm Perry Irish Hobson. I'm a business owner, Irish Boat Shop, 400 East Bay Street. I would like to thank all the members who have worked so tirelessly all year. I could not have done it myself. The patience is, sets an incredible example for the community. And this is part of what makes a community great. It's people willing to give up their time and receive, you know, essentially a lot of grief in return. So I want to tell you how much it is really appreciated, and I thank you for your work and sounds like for your continuing good work.
Thank you, Karen. All right, I believe that was 3 people in the room. Do we have any hands up? Any hands up? Okay, back to the room. And these are River Springs residents, business owners, and property owners at this point.
Oh, I'm Sam Barnwell with the Pier Restaurant, 102 East Bay Street. East or west. And I wanted to talk quickly on co-living. I was on Mackinac Island for 20 years, so have a lot of experience year round with the community side of that, from city government as well as the business owners. And there's really 2 sides to co-living that I want to point out so that a group of our community and a group of our workforce doesn't get lost. There is the bigger, like we have on Mackinac, a lot of big workforce housing. They're like a fraternity. And they're by special land use all over Mackinac for that purpose. You need to come here, you got to hear from the neighbors, you got to look at how it impacts, because it does have an impact. And making sure that that comes and there's an open discussion and a plan is exactly how those bigger workforce housings, co-living is the current term, should be. Where I want to make sure we look at and don't get lost on is the devil's in the details of the language. And with the current language saying that a family unit you can't be a family unit if you're there for economic benefit. The hardship with that is if I'm back from college and I'm 20 and I finally find an apartment to rent in Harbor Springs and it's $2,500 a month and I can barely make it, and I have 2 bedrooms because it's what I could find, I can't take on a roommate because that's for economic benefit. And I don't think that's what we want to do as a community. And there's a lot more of that going on than just a few that happen to be here. There's a lot of people that take on a roommate, you know, now 6 people in a 2-bedroom house, that's not cool. But, you know, I really want to make sure to impress upon you that language of economic benefit, basically, if you're not sleeping in the same bedroom and you're having a roommate because rents are high, those are not allowed by well, they would be allowed by special land use. You're not allowed to just take on a roommate. And so having some kind of break where if it's no more than 3 people and 1 per bedroom, I'm throwing out random ideas, but to not mix college kids that are back in town that need to have a roommate to cover rent and not having that group of a workforce not be able to live in the community and not part of that community that graduated here being able to move back.
and getting that intermixed with the bigger conversation of bigger workforce housing. Or, 10 people, 6 people, 8 people in a house. So, thank you.
Mark.
Mark Lundell, 181 Zoll Street. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm saddened and disappointed with this draft update to the Harvest Plains zoning code.
Could you speak a little louder or right into the mic?
Thanks to the repeal vote last November, you were given the opportunity to craft a new document that would meaningfully direct the future growth and development of our town in directions that would materially improve the quality of life for all groups of Harbor Springs stakeholders, including employees. You have extended countless hours of debate, meeting, study, and testimony, and time again, you have failed to adopt meaningful changes that would result in significant deviation from the direction of current development trends. I believe that this stems from your refusal to confront critical questions that constitute the most fundamental and basic parameters about what really affects the health, safety, and general welfare of the community as a whole. In your commitment to preserve an atmosphere of peace, decorum, and friendliness, you have time and time again sidestepped your obligations to make the difficult decisions required to produce a zoning code that is truly in the best long-term interest of the city as a whole. It is a fantasy to believe that we can stop change, as our current code has attempted for the last 50 years. The trajectory of growth and development resulting from our current code is crystal clear. Mega mansions, single-family homes have proliferated. Our non-resident homeownership has skyrocketed to well over 50%. The escalation in property values has driven resident young families and elderly people out of town. Daily, we are invaded by an army of contractors and workers who have no hope of becoming community residents. It has driven most ordinary businesses out of our downtown core and forced most of our day-to-day shopping and business to be conducted on the far side of the bay. We are subjected to an increasing flood of tourists who come to gawk and ogle at our playground for the wealthy. Every day, our town is becoming more and more exclusive and segregated and less like the diverse mix of residents and resorts that characterized the community back in the good old days. In many ways, the zoning code is truly the driving force behind how this town has developed and changed over the last 50 years. It will continue to mold and shape our development over the next 50. Once buildings are built and infrastructure installed, it becomes more and more difficult to redirect the path of growth and development. This is why it's so critical that we modify the guiding regulations. This is why I am so discouraged with your failure to seize this opportunity and to radically improve the future quality of life for all the different factions that make up the entirety of our Harbor Springs community. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Practice that.
Before. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Janet Stewart. I live at 410 Pine Street. And I guess with a few exceptions, I couldn't have said it better than what Mark just said. I'll start by saying thank you to all of you. I don't know how you do it, but I am so glad that you do. I know that throughout this process, you have seriously considered all the input from the city residents, from the seasonal property owners, and the many individuals who neither live nor own property in the city of Harbor Springs. Excuse me. I applaud many of the improvements that are in the new draft, but I do have some concerns, and most of them are very similar to Mark's. Overall, when I look at this and look at the concessions that have been made, I feel like there's a real push toward the non-residents and more toward the seasonal for the part-time residents in the city. So that's one of my major concerns. The second concern has to do with the lack of future potential development of affordable middle-class housing due to the following issues. And I'm a little mixed up now on whether or not, I mean, I guess now we have temporarily anyway, eliminated the cluster zoning and the plan development code. And I hope that we actually do get back to that and rethink it. The other things that bother me are the restriction of additional duplex housing in areas so where there are the restriction that if we want to add any duplexes, it has to be done in the areas where they currently exist, rather than allowing the development. For instance, north of Lake Street, where the majority of those houses are permanent residential, and it seems to me that duplex might be a perfect thing to go in there to increase the housing for year-round residents. Like Lisa indicated, I do believe that both ADUs and duplexes should be by right for all property owners, regardless of the lot size, as long as they're built in accordance with the zoning requirements. Just to say, this is my 75th summer that I have been in Harbor Springs. And I grew up in a community that was a real mix of residents living in the city and cottage owners in the resort.
Okay, we've got to wrap it up.
Okay, okay. All I need to say is that we need a plan that allows the people that service all of us to be able to live in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. And are you in line?
So I want to repeat what everyone has
Could
said.
you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry, Kathleen Whitehall, 409 Glen Drive. And I want to repeat what everyone has said in terms of the commitments you've all made. It's been a long road and a lot of give and take, and I think we have made some progress. So thank you for the commitment. I've served a small town in Texas as a city council person. I know how painful it can be. But I think the good news is you've seen engagement, energy around what people believe is in the best interest of Springs. And I know everyone is well intended and everyone has that same intent. What's in the best interest of Harbor Springs? Where I think it breaks down a little bit is that people have different perspectives in terms of what's in the best interest of Harbor Springs and what does that look like. And I think it's a different vision of what will our little town look like. One vision is that we have higher density and that we have a higher level of development in our 1.3 square miles. We sometimes forget that 1.3 square miles. There's not a lot you can do within that space. And the second vision is the whole protect and preserve. We have a gem in Harbor Springs. We have special character here, we have special charm, and we have a hometown feel. And there's a real effort, and you've heard that from people, for you to listen about how important it is for us to do that. As important as that is, the listening piece, is as you go forward to contemplate the impact of your actions. The real actions, where the PUDs are, is important. And those are ones that may seem obvious, but there's the unintended consequences as well. And I plead you to please be thoughtful about the things that haven't been thought. Do we have a water system? Heard my husband talk about it earlier. Do we have a water system that is equipped to handle what may be on the drawing board? Have we done the sewer study? Do we know that we have the capacity to deal with what could happen down the road if there is development? What about parking? We talked about it before, not just downtown, but in our neighborhoods. If we have these that are in different places, what does that mean for parking? And then the environment, one aspect to that is what's gonna happen with light pollution? I know all of you have probably gone out and watched the northern lights last few nights. What happens if in fact we become a different town? So I ask you to please be thoughtful about the consequences, ones you intend, ones that are unintended that could happen. And think about that vision that we want for our little 1.3 square miles. All of us are well intended, but please think about those consequences. Think about the gym that we have today. And hopefully we don't migrate into just another mediocre Northern Michigan town.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am?
I have to go over there.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jane Ryan. I live at 631 East Lake Street. I have a couple of questions, but you brought up the water issue. What about our electric grid? Wasn't there meetings before that we didn't have enough electric power and you wanted to put a grid over here? And that was tabled for a while because you said there wasn't enough of that. But what's going to happen to our sewer and our water and our taxes going to go up because of that? And I'm speaking as a local, and I've lived here for close to 30 years. I love Harbor Springs. That's why I came here. That's why people come here to visit. What's going to happen if all of a sudden these large homes, all of a sudden they're multi people living there? Are they going to buy them and they're no longer going to be independent homes that have beautiful landscaping and flowers on them and stuff in the summer? Are we going to become just someplace where we can have workers living instead of people? I want to keep our little town the way it is. I don't want to have to worry about later on having to do the whole sewer system and the electrical system because we don't have enough. So I think that's something you have to consider, and not for the developers, but for the locals and the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody on Zoom at this point, Jeff?
I don't see the hands.
Okay. Anybody else in the room? And are we done with residents and property owners? Wow.
Good evening. My name is Rob Cumming, and I'm the property ex-owner at 658 West Bluff Drive. I want to thank all of you again for all the hard work that you've done over the year, and I echo all the same sentiments that you've already heard. In the last meeting, I obviously stood up and I recommended offering up what I was proposing to do on the property. I think there's a lot of misinformation that's floating around, and my goal was to really bring some transparency and unity to the process. I prepared a document that shows what we've done and the history of it all that I wanted to be able to give to everyone tonight. I've heard what you guys have said. I do not, when I stood up at the last meeting, I really thought that we were going to take the whole zoning code and work hard, took some extra time to include the co-housing, the ADU, the cluster, and the PUD. And I understand wanting to move forward, removing the cluster and the PUD, but to remove that, the existing PD against the 10.74 acres that I currently own, I think is the grave injustice of what my rights are as a property. And, there is no guarantee that discussion is going to bring any fruitful outcome. And if you remove it from the existing ordinance, what am I to do? Okay, and without me being open to showing you what to do and using it as an example to hopefully be a poster child, so there's not this, arguments among ourselves. I mean, I think the work that we have done as a community has been tremendous. And I mean, we've studied Harbor Springs. I've been coming to Harbor Springs 30 years, and I've won a couple of awards. I've won one award in this town that I didn't even try to win. And I love this community. I don't want to see this community change. I want to enhance this community, and I want to help with the dialogue to try to do some healing and to show you how we can make this happen. But I'm gravely opposed to taking what we've discussed, approving that, and going to city council and then taking away what my current rights are. So thank you very much for your time. And again, anybody afterwards, I've got a brochure and I'm happy to share it with you, and have my phone number, my email, and I'm happy to talk to anybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Bill, we do have a hand up on Zoom.
Okay.
Matt also.
Hello?
Matt Gulseth, 179 West Summit Street. I call the neighborhood above Bluff Street. I agree with all the statements about Harbor Springs and its charm and its special character. I would argue that it's especially charming and has a lot of character in areas below the bluff that ironically have more density than the neighborhoods above the Bluff Street area. Uh, there was a study, I think it was March 20th, that referred to, I think it was slides 19 and 20, where the areas above the bluff essentially have half the density or a quarter of the density of the areas below the bluff, the areas that Carter, Maggie, and Robert all live in. And I would ask that the committee consider long-term, the commission consider long-term allowing incremental development in the neighborhoods above the bluff, that having ADU by right or allowing co-living in the neighborhoods above the bluff would allow that neighborhood to incrementally develop and have the charm that we see below the bluff. I think it's short-sighted to look at our city as just one, and it's sclerotic, not allowing development above the bluff to mimic what's gone on below the bluff. I appreciate all the work that's been done by this committee, but when I hear concerns about parking, traffic, and density, I think those comments are comical when you consider 10 months out of the year, it's a ghost town on West Summit where I live. There's hardly anybody around. So consider the area above the bluff differently than below the bluff and allow incremental development by neighbors to occur.
Thank you, Matt. All right, anyone else in the room, or is it time to go to non-residents and non-property owners?
We go into non-residents.
Yes.
My name is John Calandro. I live at 374 Glen Drive. I've been coming up here. I was born in Michigan. I've been coming up here since 1993. When my kids got too big to bring up here every year, I had a gap. I came back and I was shocked after 2005 to 5 years ago how town really hadn't changed. And that's a good thing. It's a really good thing because I went to all the other towns in the area. I used to go to Traverse City when I was that big, and it's not Traverse City anymore. Same thing with Petoskey. So change isn't always good. I would encourage you all to make a slow change on anything that you're talking about today, not a massive change for 1.3 acres. You know, I'm one of the guys that has taxation with no representation. So I can at least come here and say something, but I pay 40% more for the schools here. 90% of the people that do that have no kids going to school because they're coming up here and they're usually paying the taxes. They don't have kids in the school. They're in their area where they're too old to have a new family, the kids at Hopper Springs. You know, I like the idea of the last gentleman saying, hey, in the upper area, we could have certain periods and places we can try things and evaluate them and see if those things work. But elections have consequences. And we had an election and it wasn't a close election. It was double digits on what the difference was. And all of a sudden we're rushing to try to figure out how to do the same thing. And you may disagree that it's just cleaning things up, but I see the same things in here, close to the same things with the same issues. And to say that we're going to come back and go and figure it out later, we only have 6 weeks before the election. If y'all are trying to get this done before the city council election, that's not a lot of time. Let the new people get elected on the city council, then start coming up with what you want to do. I think
trying to slide something at the last minute looks a little disingenuous, whether it is or it isn't. And putting back in PUD and things that you wanna, that are contentious issues later, I think will have more bad ramifications than trying to work it all out in a small incremental way. And we could even figure out what that incremental way is. Say over the next 10 years, we'd like to take this for 2 years, this for 2 years, this for 2 years. So I know everyone's trying to compromise. Carter doesn't speak for me, okay? Carter's a nice guy. You guys don't all speak for me. I think we have to take this very slow as we go forward. I'm up on my time. Thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Andrew Von Mauer. I live at 527 North Main Street in Berrien Springs, Michigan. That's down by St. Joe. So I'm not from here, but I'm working with Rob Cumming. I'm a designer, and I've been working with him for 2 years on this project at Property X. And as you mentioned before, I think he's willing to share with others if they want to learn about the project history and about his concept. Just for transparency's sake, and to help facilitate a edifying public discourse about this PD. I understand that it may put you in a difficult position, but I think everyone's in a difficult position, especially property owners who are thinking about doing something, especially now that PD is potentially taking out the zoning. And so some of the things I'd like to say are that from my perspective as a planner and designer who works all over the world, we were really attracted to your master plan. And the master plan from 2022 is a very holistic document. And so it is a little shocking to see that the zoning ordinance, which is supposed to help enable the master plan, is now going to be severed into different components with something that is essentially less holistic. Some, PD ordinance is part of the toolbox to enable the goals of the master plan. I think that's pretty clear from the language that was in your proposed PD ordinance, and that's pretty clear from the language of the master plan. And so it's a little strange, and I would recommend that the city actually take the time to press the pause button on the whole ordinance so that it can pass a combined and complete and holistic ordinance that holistically supports the master plan. Some of the other comments I'd like to make is about this draft that Carter Williams put forward earlier. I just want to slightly sort of clarify some of his comments. I wouldn't say that Rob or the team that is working with Rob co-authored the document. We did work with Linnea Wells because she and Carter and We Love Harbor Springs sent us that draft, and we were very positively impressed by some of the language that was in that draft. And so we made some comments. We support heading in the direction that that draft represents. Obviously, there's a lot of details that would have to be ironed out. But some of those comments that were made earlier about objective measures, I think would be especially appropriate in a place like Harbor Springs, where if you don't have those objective measures, the political pressure that could exist in a planning commission meeting where you rely a lot on subjective judgment instead of objective measures could be very difficult for any kind of application. Every application could become very acrimonious. So just want to reiterate that some of those comments I think would be especially helpful for this commission to consider as you consider the revision of the PD ordinance. But just to kind of wrap things up, I think it should all be done together. It would make sense given the nature of your master plan and the ordinance draft itself.
My name is Philip Lohr. I'm at 4733 Hill Road, which is in Redmond Township. 2009 graduate of Harbor Springs High School. And I've also had the opportunity to work with Rob and with Andrew on the project that we would like to propose to the city for Parcel X. So speaking as someone who is a community member who has lived here my whole life, but I don't have voting rights here because I'm not a property owner with residency within the city. I hear everything that everyone's saying, and I also agree, and I've noticed that this community at its best is a symbiotic relationship between a bunch of different groups of people who have different interests and are here for different reasons and for different amounts of time. I think at its best, that creates a really dynamic and interesting culture, and that the master plan and the zoning code, I think, can create a way for us to work towards that as a community. And I think we've talked a lot about preserving the charm of Harbor Springs, and I'm lucky enough that I've been able to hear my grandparents and great grandparents tell me stories about this town. And I really think that it's important to realize that it's our values as a community that make us who we are. It's not the form that the town is in at any particular time, which has always changed. And that it's important not to freeze the town in amber. I don't think that's a resilient strategy to ensure a thriving future for our town. I think a balanced and heavily negotiated openness to the right kinds of projects is the best way for us to stay alive as a town, while still preserving the soul of our community. So I know that development can be really frightening in a town or in such a small town like this. And I understand with, parcel X, and it's one of the largest undeveloped parcels within the city. I think I understand why it's frightening, and I think that we should be heavily watched. I think that the protective attitude of everyone in this room is really good. And then I think that with the right language, which we've sort of gestured towards, a PD is absolutely the right tool for that, where as a community, we can work together to create projects that honor the community, respect the land, and provide a living future. Without a PD, the best that we're gonna get is just a subdivision with maybe some other special land uses, but within the PD, we'll be able to, basically we'll have the flexibility to open up a lot more opportunities for an ecological corridor and like really invest this parcel into the fabric of the land and the community, both socially and like geographically. So I really think we should not give developers carte blanche to do whatever they want with our city, but allowing closely watched flexibility of the new PD language is a way to allow really great design to allow a really good future for our community. So thank you.
President?
Patricia Howell.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. So my husband and I are property owners for 575 East Bay Street, Cottage One. And first of all, I want to start off by saying I'm very impressed with how everyone has been interacting in the effort that's been put into the design in these topics for the city. Unfortunately, I have not been able to attend any of these sessions, but I also want to applaud the advocacy groups and individual members of the community who have been making us all aware. So we have been property owners for 12 years since my oldest son was born, and I've been coming to Harbor Springs lifelong through some other family members who own property up there for multiple decades. And as everyone has commented on, the town has a uniqueness and a charm that I think we all want to preserve as much as possible, because unfortunately, I think once that is lost, it's not easily retained. So I think we're all on the same page with that. I think from my interest in what we want out of Harbor Springs, we think it's a very special place, and we've had to move multiple times. But for our family, it definitely provides a almost a home. So my kids go up there, we go up there multiple weeks, multiple weekends, and we feel like we are part of the community. My kids bike back and forth to sailing camp in the summer. We spend all of our free time up there. And I just have to say that I feel that they at age 9 and 10 can bike around that town. The people that come there now seem to have a footprint in the town. They know my family, they know the kids. I do worry if we increase density, if we increase people that don't have a long-term interest in the community. That's not really what I want to see. So that would be my interest going forward. And just as a little side note, on one of the busier weeks this summer, my husband got hit by a car just crossing Main Street. And so I don't want that to be things that I am concerned about in Harbor Springs. I think that we have been very lucky in having a small town feel. in having a sense of identity that connects us to that town. And I'd like to see that going forward with any future plans.
Thank you.
Hi, Maureen Kenny, 134 West Bay Street. I'm just confused. I don't have a horse in the race with Project X. We know since before December of 2023, planning commissioners have been meeting with the Project X folks. And we were then told there's these pre-planning meetings that Jeff holds by himself. And if it's a bigger project, then they bring in more people. So this to me just seems so out of order and out of organization that we have a developer here who hasn't even come to Jeff Grimm with his plan yet. So what are we approving and what are we developing? Nothing against you guys at all. I'm sorry, this is just a general comment. This seems we're doing this in reverse work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Feels like we're about ready to wrap up. Not yet. Oh, boy.
Hi, I'm Al Dyka. I lived here for 48 years and I was involved in the city government for most of it. Yes. First of all, you know, you guys are super good. I thank you. I know it's not fun. I'm impressed with this meeting because there is discussion. It's not fighting. And that's important to this. And I like most of the new zoning code. I agree that it should be slowed down for these issues, but I think that you're on the right path. So carry on.
Thank you, Al.
I'm a resident and I missed that.
Oh, come on out.
Yes. I don't know where to start other than I'm Mary Thompson, 917 and Traverse Street up on the hill. And I want to tell you that when I was a child, I lived on Main Street. My grandma moved here by train. And she was probably 18 years old. And she had values that I wonder how many people in this room have. That you own your own property and you take care of it. And you kind of leave other people alone if they are running their business the way she should. She had a flower shop on Main Street for over 100 years between her and her husband. And it was a very pleasant neighborhood. We used to play football down at the waterfront. We used to have restaurants like the Dinner Bell, Mert Johnson. Anyone remembers her? I will tell you, I remember Paul. I remember Mrs. Esther, and I remember Linda, and I remember James Ring. Were here when my dad, my grandma, and my mother were alive. And to see people fight over other people's property doesn't make a lot of sense to me unless that property is next door to my house and you want to put ladies of leisure like that. But you having people, you know, people that are trying to work in this community have absolutely nowhere to live. If I didn't own the house that I own right now, I could not afford in my hometown. I think it's ridiculous. Main Street, when I lived on Main Street, I could walk to anyone's house, Mrs. Posey, Mrs. Smith, anyone was there to help. I will tell you, I was a bad girl one time because my grandma was killed. And I said, is you had Phillips in a can. But the terrible thing was, this lady knew me. She saw me with the homecoming above, way down on East Main or West Main. He said, Mary, you get home right now to your grandma. Or I am going to tell her what you are trying to do. Well, I took care of that. I was never afraid of grandma beating me. But because of values, hometown values, you learn to respect other people. And trust me, that was the only time I would have upset her. And I think this community ought to think of that. What am I doing? And I know my time's. What am I doing to the community? I don't even live near you. My grandma used to buy flowers and vegetables from the stand when it was on the other side of the road. And to see people quibble and fight over other people's property does not make a lot of sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Did you speak?
I've already spoken. I just wanted to see if I could take correct statement back, and it has to do with, is it okay if I say something?
On the time.
Brief.
Make it, yeah.
It just has to do with, it was alluded that I've been meeting with you guys for 2 years, and part of my thing, I got an exact date, like historical from our calendars we put together, and I just want to let people know that that is not true, and everything that we've done has been above board, and done everything according to what the township and city said we could do. Thank you.
Okay, feels like
Yep, we have Karen O.
Karen, can you hear us? You can unmute, you're clear to go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay. Karen Offield, 1216 Denver Pass. I owned a unit down at 375 East Bay Street for several years. I've had I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and so I've been a business owner in the city as well. And I've been here about 34 years. One of the hardest things for me to hear is when people say that our voice doesn't matter, but that's okay. We want to move on from there. Things for me, it's not so much about the visitors, because the visitors will come. We've got the tunnel of trees, we've got the skiing, we've got the summer lake products, we have Michigan. Everything is all set for us. And what we can do is sort of protect the scenic and idyllic place. It's a really different town than other places. And I think maybe some of the folks don't realize how different it is. When I grew up in Aspen, I thought it was exciting because Aspen grew up with me. But now I look back at Aspen and no one can live there, and everybody has moved out, and the residents that really belong there can't live there anymore. I first got involved in our policies here because of the wetlands. I wanted to protect the wetlands over there in Weekby. I'd like to ask the Planning Commission tonight if you would reconsider working a little bit more on the wetland overlays and the sand dunes. That's one request. I agree with Al Dika that going slow is a great way to go. And I just thank you that we've made so many new friends. And you know, for those that want to say we're doing the wrong thing, I think we're doing the right thing, and we're all doing it together. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Okay.
Linda Rockwitz, 519 East 3rd. Cool to see everybody here tonight. I
have thought, I've been to most of the meetings. And I disagree that we rush things. But what because there are so many of us today, we have got to find a way to all, whether you're part-time in the townships or whatever, you're part of this community, we have to find a way to work together. And I think one of the things that might facilitate that is the city manager sends out a monthly newsletter. You just have to give him your email, and then you will know what's going on. And as inadequate as the Zoom might be from time to time, you can at least listen and find out. And I think that would help us all feel part of the process and work together. And I just can't resist. You never guess that this handsome young man cried at the Christmas party this articulate young man cried when he was 9 at the Christmas play at the church.
Let's be sure to get that down.
Yeah.
All right, feels like we're at the end of the public comments. And would anyone on the planning commission care to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
We've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Right. Public hearing is closed. Thank you very much. Those are thoughtful, detailed comments and really appreciate it. All right, now the planning commission can consider the comments that we've heard, consider all of our different inputs and see if there's anything that we'd like to revisit. We did make a commitment to come back and take a look at co-living houses and at ADU approvals. And we may have heard some other things in here as well. Yep.
Yeah, I just have one question. You know, I think you did a great job summarizing what the issues were in the past meetings. And there are issues we're talking about. Why don't we take the time to discuss those issues and come up with a final plan before going to city council? Why the timing, I guess? Why can't we take a couple more months and work out the PD language, actually have something that goes to the city council? Why are we in such a hurry?
Vanessa.
I know it feels like the finish line keeps moving and moving, but it is moving. And I don't know why we would take something out that supports our master plan and is currently giving rights and is currently in the code. Just take it out. It's gone. I don't know why we would do that. If the finish line is moving, then we move and we finish it. We just don't take things out to figure it out later. Why have we done this? Why have we come so far just to take pieces out? And that is why I voted no when I did. I think it has to be addressed. I think it should be addressed, and I think it can be addressed. I don't know why we would just take.
Other thoughts from the planning commission on that topic?
I was more on the side of saying, let's take those areas out and put things forward, and not with the idea of rushing, because none of this is going to happen quickly anyway, even when it does get to city council. But I'm being persuaded by people in the audience and also by you folks saying we have a job to do, that is to produce a best finished document the way that we see it and then present it to council. So I'm getting persuaded to say, let's just keep going at it. And then when we get these final sections, right, then we'll submit one thing with a bow on.
I think the one thing that does really stick out to me is what Vanessa said. You know, I don't think we've anywhere else in all the work we've done, taken away a right. Especially to this degree, I mean, it's pretty significant. And that does give me pause. You know, some of these other things, I say, yeah, you can maybe come back and work on those. But this one is a pretty big one. And I think it's a major issue that needs to be resolved. And regardless of who done this movie at that point in time, I believe it will be done.
Just to clarify, my reading of planned unit development, part of the current zoning code, is only available in the R1E zoning district. And it's a 10-acre minimum in R1E only. And a half acre downtown with a whole different set of requirements in the CBD. So the existing planned unit development is extremely limited. In fact, it feels like it's written to prevent any planned unit development from actually happening. So I don't believe parcel X is in R1E. So there may not actually be a loss of rights to at least this property. But for the 22 properties in R1E, the Glen Beach Association, whose bylaws probably prevent almost anything from happening, they're the only ones that have the planned unit development.
So that makes the case that what we have now is not sufficient.
All right, you want to think on that one for a minute? Look back to a couple of other things.
Unless I'm assuming that we're gonna make some other changes, either to the ADUs or whatever. Just in my experience of dealing with legal documents, I like to see the final product, red line or whatever, before I vote on it. Okay. I think we should take our time and actually take a couple more months. We're so close. Let's do the right thing.
The other side of the argument. The other side of the argument is the current zoning code is so bad that residents could benefit from the new zoning code faster if we put in the parts that everybody's solid on, and we just hold off on a couple parts. So that's the other side of the argument. All right, let's stew on that for a minute, and let's move over to maybe co-living house. What are people feeling on that now that you've heard public comments and factored in what you've heard at the open houses?
Well, I appreciate the comment from the your bar owner. What are the rules for leasing out or renting out to a couple guys your apartment? How does that happen today?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Okay.
It's not supposed to. I mean, we have a definition for single family.
All right.
And if you don't meet that definition of single family, then you would have to look at any of the other proposed uses that we have in our code. So if right now, under the existing zoning code, if I own a home in town and I am using one bedroom and have two more, and I say I want to have a couple roommates, I don't think that this current zoning code has an allowance to let that happen.
How does it look for long-term rental? If you decide, well, these people would be long-term rental over 30 days, can I have that in my house?
Yeah, please.
They would be renting out the entire house, and the people that would be renting it would need to meet
You
the
can't have that
definition of single family.
individual room.
Under the current code, it's not really permitted unless they look at one of the other uses that's currently in our zoning code, such as rooming house, boarding house, bed and breakfast, some of those other terms. And they come to the planning commission for special land use approval to use the property under those uses. And our definition of single family is quite lengthy. And we redid that, I think, a few years ago. So it incorporates a lot of, ideas of people that are not necessarily related, but are acting as a family unit. But just people that are co-living out of necessity to save on finances, and whatnot. It doesn't really address or provide an opportunity.
Okay. Well, I think we need to differentiate between that and like employee housing. And I like his comments about maybe restricting the number of bedrooms or whatever, but I think it needs discussion.
My take on the co-living, I think it's something that we really ought to consider. I know when I was going to school and making $6 an hour. Yeah, I know. I should have been making at least $6.50. I had to do that in order to be able to afford to go to school and have some independence. And so, number one, I think it is going to be a good thing for the city as far as being able to house workers, people who we need in this city to work service jobs, wait tables, that sort of thing. And number two, I think it's actually contrary to the concern over density, because the truth of the matter is, if you have a 3-bedroom home, you can have as many, and you have a family living there, you could have 6, 8, 10 people living there. The McAvoy family on the east side of Detroit, where I grew up, had 11 kids living in a 3-bedroom house. And that's what I would call density. There's a governor on this by virtue of the fact that you can only have one person per bedroom. And then the final governor is that if the neighbors don't want it, they have an opportunity to have a say in it. So my feeling is it's not an unreasonable ask.
The schools are going to be changing soon. There are a lot of teachers that are going to be up for retirement. There's a lot of administrators that are going to be up for retirement. If right now, when they hire, they're taking from nearby schools, they're taking from other nearby communities, and teachers and administrators are making commutes. I think that if there is some co-living, there is an opportunity for these schools to bring in new, young, fresh ideas that can possibly rent. Because right now they can't. And so this pool just kind of rotates from school to school and goes to different school and then comes back and then leaves it and so forth. And so I think that as these teachers and these administrators are going to be getting to the point where they can look at retirement, and there is going to be a bulk here soon, this is going to open up an opportunity to bring in some different folks with some different ideas to move the schools forward.
So, would you be in favor of keeping co-living as an option, special land use option in some districts? Okay.
I concur with both Bob and Vanessa on the co-living. Certainly, I think Bob's point where the controls that we put in certainly provide for the opportunity for the building to have significantly fewer residents than it might in some other scenarios. The fact that we've got special land use, so we go through the rigorous procedure, I think provides all the protections needed. I think I challenge most people in this room to honestly say that they've never, shared a house or an apartment or something with somebody at some point in their life. We should be allowing that opportunity in this town.
What's some thoughts you done?
Yeah, I would question that a little bit because.
Okay, ma'am, we're past the time for public
Sorry.
comment yet. But I see where you're going. No. Jean, what do you think about co-living and the need for it and how we should handle it?
Well, I think it makes sense in the sense of just that. Summertime, we need people to be able to work in town. And it's nice as a college kid to be able to come home to your hometown and be able to afford it. I did it illegally. I think it's important.
So would you come down on the side of keeping the language as we have it today, which is special land use in
Yes.
residential districts?
Yes.
Okay. Chip, you've been thinking about this. Where do you come out at this time?
I mean, I agree with Jeannie and to the extent that I think we need to have a provision for people to rent 1 or 2 rooms under a long-term lease arrangement. I don't like the idea of boarding house or employee housing. You know, I term it as a short-term rental on steroids, lots of people, lots of traffic, and then it's empty 9 months of the year. If we can get long-term housing, it's for a couple people, all year long, I'm for that.
Okay, great. John and Jeff, do you have any ideas how we, based on what you've heard, are there any adjustments you could recommend that
Change the definition of family.
change? John, I'm gonna use the mic.
What's precluding it, as Jeff has mentioned, is the definition of family. Change the definition of family. And then we've solved the problem.
And how would we change that to make this better?
Well, I think, there's different definitions that are out there. There's definitions that are of family that are in state documents and federal documents, different policy documents. The definition of family here is pretty definitive. And like Jeff says, if 2 people that are unrelated live in an apartment and share, a 2-bedroom, under the current code, it's not allowed. So in order to allow that, you have to change the definition, which would provide a little bit more flexibility.
Would we like to have John give us a proposal for a different definition of family? Then it would let people.
Well, I would be happy to do that, but I'd like to do it in conjunction with the city attorney.
Great idea. Okay, planning commission members, would you like those guys to bring us back an alternative definition that would allow kind of a lower intensity of use, sharing a house?
I think we should certainly look at that. What would that do to this discussion? Would that then, how would that change the co-living portion of the code? If we change the definition of family, does that take away significant portions of the need for co-living? I'm just trying to have a conversation. I'm not sure I understand the direction.
Are people concerned about the 6-person max in the proposed code?
Yeah, I'm more concerned about that's one of them, but it's more about just the seasonal employee housing and versus having a full-time person here who just wants a cheaper place to live. I'm definitely for having the ability to change the definition of the word family to accommodate people that they have 1 or 2 people, sharing an apartment or a house or whatever. I'm fine. I would support that. It's more about the seasonal housing that bother.
So take us one level.
Yeah, I know. I'd like to see the language proposed by Jim and John for family. Do you have a duration? Yeah, I mean, I think it's more, for me, it's more about a long-term rental. People would want to rent an apartment or bedroom in their house. I would like them to enter into a long-term rental arrangement. How long? What do you mean? How do we define long-term rental? 2 months, 3 months?
Right now, it's anything longer than 30 days.
30 days.
And
I guess I'm proposing like like a 6 months a year kind of.
it sounds like what I'm hearing is that co-living really needs to be split in 2.
I agree.
And then the idea of people that are co-living, renting for long term, like what we've been discussing now, that could be enveloped and moved into single family use and part of the single family definition. But that larger scale or workforce housing really should be maybe a separate definition. Maybe we just call it workforce housing. And then we come up with rules regarding where that can happen or if it can happen. Does that sound like,
That's all my problem.
does that sound like what we're discussing? Am I summarizing that well?
Yes.
So I guess that would be my follow-up, is we could rename co-living workforce housing. And then have a discussion of where that should be located.
Yeah.
Where it shouldn't be located. So on, and then we would have a clear idea of how to move forward. It sounds like they have something.
John has an idea.
Hold on a second, we're just.
Yeah, Jeff, I agree. To Chip's point, the duration is probably a metric, defining perhaps the difference of those two. But I think it's important to specify to some degree so that we don't have a backdoor to more short-term rental problem.
Yeah.
Just one final comment is in our draft, I know it's a draft, I think the language about co-living requirements is quite good. And we've heard in the open houses fear from that term, co-living, everybody's moving in, bunch of cars, all this stuff. Well, the requirements are significant in terms of space, parking space, what has to be shielded, all those things in order to directly go after noise, crowdedness, lighting, all those sorts of things. So I like what we have drafted. I agree with the discussion about these other elements.
Okay, John and Jim, did you just come up with a
No.
real-time solution for it?
We took a look at the large definition here of family. We took a look at the large definition. Jim and I want to go through and parse it out because it has multiple conditions. So
You guys think you could simplify it and get it
we
focused?
hope to, or at least come back with some clarity on exactly what the definition does mean.
I think we can work, we listen to what the commission's concerns are and what the objectives are. I think we'll come up with some mandatory language.
Okay, great. Love to see what you come up with. All right, so that's one we're not gonna solve tonight, but we did narrow down a little bit. Okay, let's revisit ADUs and ADU approvals. So we're in the difficult position where some zoning districts today have ADUs are permitted. You don't need any special land use. You don't need any special permission. Then we have most of our district, or the other district where most of our homes are, a much greater number, do not have the ability to have an accessory dwelling unit without a special land use, which is a formal process that one has to go through. So we've got a problem. Well, we've got a situation. The problem situation is some people don't need special permission. Other people do need special permission. In the draft code, we have proposed that no one needs special permission, that you could build an ADU by right, or it would be a permitted use. And we heard in the open houses a lot of concern that neighbors weren't going to be notified and consulted as people are planning an accessory dwelling unit. And again, the scale on this is extremely small. We've averaged 1.5 accessory dwelling units per year, at least for the last 4 years. Also, as background, there are believed to be more than 100 in place in the city today, and we've had it for a lot of years. So, planning commission members, do you have any thoughts on the approval of that?
Well, I've been pretty consistent about not taking away people's existing rights, but I also hear what the people are saying about having some guardrails about ADUs citywide. And today they're allowed in R1A, but not in R1B. They're by right in R1A and special use in R1B and C. And I also like the idea of making them all the same. But I would go for special use in all of them.
Okay. Very clear, thank you. Anybody else want to weigh in on this?
I want it to be fair. So to me, it either needs to be all by right or all special.
Okay.
So sounds like the community wants the special, then it should be, everybody then should be special land use.
So I agree with Vanessa and Chip as well, that I think it should be the same for every district. I'm disappointed that we seem to be leaning towards making it special use, special land use. I wish it would have been by right, but one thing I really feel strongly about is it should be the same for everyone. I just don't think it makes sense for it to be different.
I certainly, I believe that the wording we have currently with AUDs in all districts by right is the right direction. It's what I'd be supporting.
Yeah, I kind of agree with the group as well, that it should be everybody or nobody. And then I agree with Bob. I'm kind of disappointed as well. You know, I think people have the right to do what they need to do on their property with an ADU. It's unfortunate that there's going to be now an expense on top of the approval process. That's unfortunate. So, but I do agree that it should be all or nothing for everybody.
Yeah, I am. Let's just duplicate what Barry just said. That's exactly how I feel.
So let me paraphrase it. Sounds like you would prefer by right, and it would be for everybody. But might grudgingly accept special land use, or
Taking it too far like Tony here.
No,
I think it should be by right. I think people should have that right. And if you look at realistically, the amount, how this is gonna be, it's gonna be so controlled by the existing limitations on all the lots. You only have so much area you can have land coverage on. I mean, it's completely protected. You can have a huge house that covers 40% of the property. You can't have an ADU. You can have a house that covers 30% of the property. That'll leave you 10% for an ADU or the other accessory building. So it's completely controlled. And I don't really see that it would be an issue, in my opinion.
and we've increased the setbacks currently.
Yeah, it's all, the limitations on the zoning control it very nicely, in my.
Jeannie and Kenny.
Thank you.
I am somewhat in the middle on this issue, and I don't have any dog in the race. The part that allows me to be persuaded to go special land use is that I don't like the idea of having someone's right now become something where there's a fee to do that in the future. However, they still have the right for an ADU. They just now have this new procedural issue with a fee and more gymnastics where it used to be by right. However, the preparation required for that planning commission review is all work that would be required in order to build it anyway. That's my understanding. Again, I haven't done it. I haven't looked at the details. So the friction then becomes the fee and the timing. And for the sake of consistency, I'm willing to say we must be consistent. Therefore, I slightly come down on the side of special land use.
That's why you went first.
Okay.
That helped clarify.
Now it really is your turn.
Okay, I agree with what you said, and I actually had talked with somebody else about this today that I felt the same way, that there are so many fees involved anyway. I wasn't at the open houses, and I know from here that that's a big hot topic, so I guess we go with the majority of how people felt. As long as it's equal. And so I think special land use makes sense if there was that much contention regarding.
Okay, all right. So let me go around and so Jeannie says special land use.
I thought that you have exciting.
Oh, great. Kenny is slightly SLU. Chip is special land use. What are you thinking now?
What I said before, I mean, that's
By right.
by right, yeah.
Do you want public comment?
By right. By right, Tony? Barry?
Yeah, I would prefer by right.
All right.
Special land use.
Yeah, 4-4.
Mr. Chair, what's your pleasure?
Oh, it's very easy, very straightforward.
You want to make that?
I'd be a strong proponent of by right, always was. I think people ought to have the ability to do lawful things with their property. On the other hand, I think we could run for the next year or two with special land use at extremely low volume and look at it again, every single September and say, do we still need to keep this extra restriction down there or not? So I come down grudgingly on the side of special land use for this one, for the next version.
And then Bill, is there a way we can adjust the fees or eliminate the fees for this? I mean, is that something that we could?
Yeah, not part of zoning, but it'd be city policy, and that's a recommendation we could make to city council.
Like that.
But I believe I've learned through all this that the fees have to cover the costs. Or else we're sticking other taxpayers with the cost for somebody to do a project at their property. So we're kind of stuck.
So another alternative?
Yeah.
If we went by right, could we put a cap on how many ADUs were allowed on an annual basis?
Good.
I think when we went into the public comment, when we went into the informational meetings, I think we went in with good faith. And we did listen to people. So while I did want by right, I also felt that we had to go into those meetings and listen to folks. So that's why I changed, because I did go to those informational meetings. I did hear the folks. Some of those meetings were painful, by the way. They were very painful, sometimes even hurtful. But we had to listen.
I'd like to throw in a comment here if I could. Yeah. And this is gonna tie into something else. So this is the most clear example of where we are having a crisis of faith of whether something should be administratively approved by potentially myself as the zoning administrator versus coming to the planning commission for planning commission review and approval. What if we go back to the middle ground of having the administrative committee could review something like this? And there could be certain triggering factors that if the administrative committee determines that it needs to be elevated to come to the planning commission for review and approval and mailings go out, that it could be. Or if it didn't meet those factors, could be done administratively, which was the original idea of creating the administrative review committee to handle these middle ground situations where we couldn't decide.
John.
Let's take a look at the broader policy without getting too much in the weeds. Under the proposed zoning code, ADUs can be rented, but not on a short-term basis, which provides an outlet for some of the additional housing that's needed here in the community. Don't sacrifice that over a procedure. If the community is concerned about having input on what goes on in their neighborhood, give it to them. But don't sacrifice the bigger picture of losing an opportunity to have a house for an employee or the school teacher or the firefighter, because some of you want it by permit, by right only, and special land use. If somebody really wants to build it, they'll pay the $750. Okay? So I'm suggesting, guys, we have to go incrementally, move on, make it a special land use. And then that way we can actually put a ticker up saying, we have provided an alternative housing type for the city. And take a look at it that way, okay?
Yeah,
I agree.
thank you, Jim.
Okay.
All right. Sounds like where we are is that this will be special land use approval in all residential zoning districts where they're permitted. Okay. What else is on your mind regarding what you've heard or what you've been thinking about that we might want to adjust?
Hey, Bill?
Yeah.
Can we go back to planned developments again?
Yes, I think,
Because I may have misunderstood something. It's my understanding that this little memo we got here, that we're going to take the concept of what planned development is completely out of the zoning ordinance for now. So this new revised zoning ordinance is not going to have planned development as an option, period. Did I misunderstand that?
well, no, we're gonna circle back to that and make a final decision on whether or not we want to do that. And potentially, yeah, we'll make a final decision on how we want to.
I mean, I personally voted to take it out of this code, but I don't want that. I mean, I want a code that works for everybody. And I think we're too quick to actually want to vote on it tonight. That's my point. Just wait a couple months. Let's get it right.
Well, then let's circle back around on this one, make our big decision about how to proceed. All right, I heard from Chip. Who wants to go next on the topic of, should we just delete PUDs and cluster zoning from the ordinance and potentially move forward tonight? Or do we want to proceed and work out all the language on those two?
But you know where I stand, right? Or do you want me to say it again?
Say it again.
I don't think we should just take something out and put it into a black hole and revisit it at some point. We've done too much. We've gone through so much. We are so close. I want to finish it.
Great. Very clear. Thank you. Mark?
I actually would prefer to stay in. I think having a PUD as an option is very important. I think it's eloquently expressed by the gentleman in the back there. I'm in agreement with that. And the cluster housing, I think where it can actually be used is just so limited when you look at the actual limitations of all the zoning districts. It'd be very hard to cause trouble with that. So I'm fine with them being in there as they are. So I wouldn't be real happy about just pushing them off to the side, because this one's sort of following.
The hitch was that in the open houses, people were very concerned about the language that was in there.
Yeah.
Asked us to really scrub it. And then we got a couple more opportunities that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
So take a look. So you would prefer to keep it in and keep it in and perhaps amend it?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I think they're important to have, and that we should work it out and have it in place. So I think that can be done.
Barry?
So I agree with Mark. So I do think that we should keep it in. It should be looked at as far as what can be done and not done. I think right now, somebody with a 10-acre lot, like I said before, can put in 30 houses wherever they want, and to have something that's planned that looks good for the community, I think is very important. So just having that piece in there where it has to come to a committee, I think is very important. So
would you rather work through it and get the whole picture together?
yeah, and that includes getting feedback from obviously all the residents, but just having that protection in there, I think is important than somebody coming in and just putting 30 houses in a 10-acre lot that really doesn't protect anything as far as trees or rivers running through it or whatever. So just having that piece in there that we can conserve a lot of things, I think is important.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I need clarification here. Vanessa is very clear. Keep working. Don't submit a document that has some goals that promise to fill. To me, there's another dimension to this. That is when we want to keep it in. Does that mean today's code and language, which Chip objected to earlier in the meeting, or this draft? And then keep working on this draft, which is Vanessa's point again of keep working. So I just want to make sure we're definitive here. I'm not totally following the points of view here.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is that we would keep working on the draft that we've been working from and improve that and potentially modify it, add some different dimension.
Yeah, I think we should, I saw, for anybody who doesn't remember, I was originally suggesting to keep the current zoning code sections for PUDs and cluster and move forward that way. I think that's still an option if we want to push the zoning code across the finish line and get, most of the heavy lifting done. If we don't decide to go that way, I would rather keep working on those two issues for moving it forward.
Thank you. All right, Bob.
Yes. So my feeling is, I had the same concern you had, Kenny, is are we saying we're gonna keep the 2005 code, or are we gonna keep the draft? And I wanna make sure that it's clear that whichever one we keep, if we're gonna keep it, we're not going with that. We're going to be working with that to massage it, to make it a little bit more considerate of some of the concerns that are being voiced by the community, right? Okay, so I would probably say, I don't want to go back to 2005. I would say, let's keep the draft that we have right now, and let's work to make it a little bit more acceptable to the community at large.
Okay, great. All right, rounding out to Kenny, Eugene.
The current draft in, not today's code, but the draft language, just as Bob said, and then we keep working.
Okay.
I think that is what makes the most sense.
Okay. Then we have consensus to,
Bill, John would like to say something.
thank you, Vanessa. Yes, John?
Let me suggest a process here. Plan unit development is a fairly technical concept that I don't think needs to be debated at a planning commission meeting, going through redraft of redraft. I know Lene Wells, she's a professional planner out of Grand Rapids. In fact, Lene hired me to do work for the township that she consults on. I want to disclose that. So I have a lot of respect for her. The changes that were made by Lene in conjunction with the We Love Harbor Springs group, I don't necessarily agree with 50% of it because it's too onerous and very restrictive in some areas. However, procedurally, I wouldn't mind getting together with Lene and whoever the We Love Harbor Springs group is, because to me, that's very amorphous. I don't know who they are. And if they had 2 or 3 spokespeople, this is something that the committee gets together and negotiates it out and then brings back a draft product. And I would prefer to do that at this point, rather than go through the redlining that we've done before and back and forth and come back at another meeting and have the planning commission meet another 3 or 4 times on this. I mean, we're at a point now where I see what they're targeting and what their recommendations are. I think we need to present what some of our concerns are, and you just negotiate it like a contract. So my suggestion is, if the We Love group can identify 2 people that are their spokesmen that can speak for them, along with Lene, then a couple people from the planning commission and myself and Jeff, we meet as a group and we go through it and we present a consensus draft to the planning commission at your next meeting.
Great, that's a very nice offer.
And then we get to weigh in.
And then,
Yeah, what about the rest of us residents?
Well, then, what the residents would get,
Members that
anonymous group.
Correct,
is
but what I'm getting,
People think
well, but what I'm getting at, ma'am, what I'm getting at, ma'am, is that we work as a committee and then bring a draft back to the planning commission, which then the community can review and comment on.
Okay, but just to meet with that one group is really wrong. I'm sorry.
Well, tell me a different process, because they're the ones that have submitted red line versions that they want the planning commission to consider.
Let's hear from Carter.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, we love Harbor Springs paid Lene for her professional skills to help draft it based on her professional opinion with input from other people. There's no consensus. And we love that it is an amorphous group because it has no censoring on it. So I don't know that, I guess I gotta think about it a little bit, but I would prefer, I only offered it as a draft for, other than saying we need more objective measures. It's a draft with objective measures. I think we love Harbor Springs, we'd be more than willing to pay for Lene's time if that's an issue. And I would encourage, if there's a subgroup that wants to get together, that be a group that just gets together and helps with your red line and it works through the chaos somehow. And then comes back with the draft, but I don't think that there's a consensus opinion.
I think Carter, you just hit the nail on the head. From my perspective, it's the chaos. I mean, we gotta come to a consensus as a community on what's included. And the way I perceived when you handed your red line out, which I looked at, I thought it was the recommendations from the We Love Harbor Springs, and it was not.
It is not, it was, I don't know how to explain this. So there are many people that have many opinions. They try to bring some focus to it. Lene's professional. We paid Lene to bring it together. We took some opinions from there. We offered as a resource if people would like to do it. I think if you had a side meeting, I guess we get frustrated by subcommittees, but a little side committee where a few of the different people were interested in avoiding spot zoning, and then came back for a draft for everybody's commentary. I think that that's really what's the decision.
Maggie.
I mean, we have a really great planner right here that also could that did participate, and he has worked many different cities and towns would represent the other portion of the community. So I would want to make sure that we're thinking about Andrew. And so it's balanced, because it makes me a little bit nervous that we're just putting all the faith in We Love Harbor Springs. I'm not part of We Love Harbor Springs. And so I'm an independent, and I want to make sure that we are doing this objectively and it's fair to all. And so that kind of made me a little bit nervous listening as well.
Yeah.
So.
Jane.
Yeah, I have the same feeling. If you're gonna have a meeting with this, I Love Harbor Springs, you should have some Harbor Springs residents there also. They shouldn't be a group that nobody knows who they are, where they're from, or who's paying them. And then we hear the second of, well, they said this and they suggested that. We should hear it from them, and they should also be able to see their faces as they see ours.
Okay,
Isn't this how we got where the repeal?
Right.
Because it was a sub.
All right, Rob.
One. What John said, I've been against Lene Winnells and I'm with her. She's a professional. I respect her. I don't agree with everything that she put in the red line, but to me, part of what we offered up last week is that, this is a very complicated issue. And again, why I offered up to sort of be a poster child or a guinea pig, whatever you want to call it, is to sort of give you some examples that people can really make some educated decisions on, because it is complicated. And the average person doesn't understand the planning. I don't understand planning. I mean, these two guys, you listen to them, they're articulate. They do this for a living. That's why I hired them. Okay. And I just think it's important that they get the professional group of people who's going to help you guys make the decision that you need to make.
Great. So I like the idea of getting a lot of advanced work done so that planning commission isn't talking about periods and semicolons and subjunctive clauses. And is there a way, what if we got all three offered professionals and they just talked together and brought us back? And we're John's client, so we're our, he's our primary guy. What if we had John be the person who brought back kind of a consensus proposal from three planners, we would include Andrew, and see what we think about it? So no residents, no groups, no anything else, just 3 professionals. Does that sound good?
I like that. I like that a lot.
Okay. John, can you make it happen?
Yes, I will.
Thank you very much. That's fantastic. Okay, so here we are, and I think what we've decided is that we're gonna forward John, get the wording on plan development right. Take another look at cluster zoning, and then bring back everything in a single package.
Right, wording on the word definition of family and that kind of thing.
We got
Yes,
that.
the
Yeah.
things that we picked up tonight. Okay,
Can I please offer you a suggestion?
sure.
Okay, the Latin root, the word familia in Latin it's defined as household. So you might consider the word household.
Anybody living under one roof.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
I'm just suggesting.
All right, and it's a modern world, you know that. All right, planning commission members, do you have any other concerns or ideas that we need to know about as we get to the next version?
Just a clarifying question. I like the direction we're heading. I appreciate that. Is cluster zoning going to be part of this, or should we be treating that as a separate issue? I don't know.
I think it's so simple, we should just talk about it next time and decide if we're gonna approve it or not, but we should change the name.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah, for sure, to open space preservation like this. That's based, but I think it's so simple, we can approve it. Okay, so,
The only other issue, I'm not clear on whether or not we get finished was the administrative review committee and who makes it up and what they're there for. Are they dormant, not dormant?
okay,
that kind
so
of thing.
that's defined in the code, right? We have a definition of the administrative.
Right.
committee. The only place that I can find that it lives is in the
Site plan review.
I thought it was an overlay for
Waterfront.
Waterfront.
There's one other iteration where it comes into play, and this is something that's carried over from the 2005 code. Let's say that somebody comes to the planning commission for a site plan review. And then 6 months, a year later, they have some modification to that site plan. The committee is there to determine if that site plan modification is a large enough modification where it requires a resubmittal of a new site plan review to the planning commission for follow-up. Or if that modification to the site plan is minimal enough where it does not need to be rediscussed. A great example of that is this came into play not too long ago with the project, when we had a site plan review for the condominiums down here where they were gonna be rebuilding their new garage and replacing some stuff. And they had like a relocation of a drainage line. And the question then came up of, do they need to come back for a whole new site plan review to the planning commission? And I believe that we then, and currently under the existing code, it's the chair of the planning commission, the city attorney, and the city manager make up the administrative review committee. And they review it and say, no, this is minimal enough, we don't need to have a whole meeting about it. Or they can say, yeah, let's kick it back.
Thank you for that clarification.
So that doesn't sound concerning to me at all.
It certainly needs to be there where somebody is making that determination of, does this need a full review or not? And that's what it was put in. That way, and that way it's also not just myself, one person making that decision.
Anybody else on the planning commission concerned about administrative review committee?
I just wanted clarification.
Okay. All right, great. All right, looks like we're down to just a handful of issues. Plan development's gonna be interesting. And it probably is good to have our professionals get together first and bring us something that we can act on. Tell us benefits and risks and everything.
I have one question, Mr. Chairman, while we have the benefit of the city attorney here. That question would be to Mr. Raymer. If we come back with a revised PD article, which would be Article 10.1, is that going to constitute the need for another public hearing?
Probably not, but it wouldn't hurt. Why not do it?
Right, just wanted to ask.
Actually, if any of our residents had opinions. All right, let's go to old new business. Any other items that we should discuss tonight?
If that's the case, may I suggest this? I'm pretty confident that meeting with Lene and the representative from the Project X can come back with a draft for the PC. May I suggest, so we're not elongating this, that maybe the planning commission consider, if Mr. Raymer thinks it's beneficial, maybe tonight, the planning commission schedule a public hearing for the October meeting to review that, so we're not having to.
Keep it moving.
Yes.
Well, I believe, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we're tabling this discussion for a specific date of a meeting, then I believe that can carry over the existing public hearing to that date, if we specify the date. If we set it for an unknown meeting that will happen sometime in the future, we would need to have a new public hearing for that meeting. That's what I believe I've done.
So I said, probably you did not need to hold a public hearing, but wouldn't it be prudent to do so, given the contentious nature of this issue?
Yeah, I mean, we ought to have full participation. Everybody gets their comment. I just, you guys just tell us what we need to call it, when we need to schedule it, and we'll do it. And would it be safe just to decide tonight? We'll have a public hearing.
I think
we can advertise it.
I think the difficulty with that, though, I think the difficulty is if we schedule a public hearing, we have to have that draft language available for public review, and we don't have that yet, correct? Is that, how do we address that issue?
Well, when is the October meeting?
16.
So you have to put, everything has to go out 15 days before. I would assume in the next 2 weeks, this committee can develop language.
Yeah.
So by the time you publish, you'll have the language.
Sure.
All right.
If they accept my language, we'll be done in about 3 hours.
Okay. All right, why don't we go ahead and schedule a public hearing for our October meeting? What was the date on that one?
16.
16th, and then we'll be covered. We'll do it right, we'll get full input. And, hi, honey. That's exactly right.
Yeah. We're not done yet.
Yeah, and John, so John and Jim will get us, I guess we'll see the product when the public sees it, right?
Yes.
It's part of the package. Okay.
Well,
And then,
it's gotta be advertised.
So was that a motion to hold a public hearing on October
that
16th?
was a motion to hold a public hearing October. Whatever.
Second.
Let me just get the dates. So I can say it.
Would that allow time to actually make changes to the proposed language if we want to?
After the public hearing.
That's it.
After the public hearing.
After the public.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
We have a motion to,
Okay, all right, I'd like to make a motion, we hold a public hearing, on October 16th. I'll second that. We have a motion and a second.
yeah, very key to it. Oh, we have a motion. How about a roll call?
How about a roll call, Seth?
All right, Vanessa Warren.
Yes.
G. Benjamin.
Yes.
Bob Buckner.
Yes.
Barry Lester.
Yes.
Bill Mulder.
Yes.
Mark Today.
Yes.
Chip Everest.
Yes.
Tony Johnson.
Yes.
Kenny Stewart.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, great, thank you for all the procedural help, team. Appreciate it. All right, any older new business? All right, this meeting is adjourned, thank you.